Time now to bring in CBS Sports WNBA analyst Erica Ayala. And Erica, I see you feeling yourself. You flexing a bit. Can we get the lottery numbers? Because one, you didn't just know that the Fever were going to win. You knew that they were going to win by double digits, right? You were 1 point off. And it's crazy because Minnesota led this game in the second, 27-14. And then the Fever going an 18-0 run to close out the quarter. They really never looked back since then. What was the key to you? What did you see specifically that made the Fever snatch this game from Minnesota in their building?
They had a ferocity that they played with. It started with their defense, excuse me, and then poured out into their offense. Stephanie White trusted her bench players to make key plays at key moments. We saw that in the highlights with Sophie Cunningham, also with Sid Colson. They were able to bring that spark, that energy that was required. And then I also spoke about Ari McDonald. She had those moments as well. And with those with the different sparks that you had from the different players on that Indiana Fever squad, they had that calming presence by three-time WNBA champion Natasha Howard, a true vet, just doing what was required. Then that opened up play for Aaliyah Boston down the road. And this was just a complete game. I've seen this Indiana Fever team play New York very hard, very intense, bring that defensive intensity to games. And that's what gave me the confidence to say, oh wait, you know, don't count Indiana out. No Caitlin Clark, no problem. This team had to learn how to play without Clark early on. And I think they've refined things. It was not always, Chris, smooth sailing without their point guard, but they've been figuring it out.
Yeah, they've been figuring it out. So going forward, what can this do, right, to build momentum for this team when Caitlin Clark does get back?
I think the first thing is that it takes a little bit of pressure off of Clark herself and maybe just generally speaking, the organization to not have to rush her back. That's what you want to do for your star player, is let them know we got you. You know, we know that she's been having difficulty with that leg, you know, from an ankle to a squat to a quad, excuse me. And she needs to rest. So this hopefully will give her the confidence, the peace of mind to do that. And then when she does come back, again, they've been refining and perfecting those rotations. They know who they can go to on the bench in particular. And so Caitlin Clark is also seeing this as she's sitting out, so she knows where to go in key moments in the game when she does get back on the court. Yeah,
cannot wait to see how this offense and just the overall team looks when she gets back. Obviously, it wasn't the prettiest game, right? It wasn't in the 90s, 80s, but the Fever out-rebounded Minnesota 40-30 on those glass, got those really hustle plays that led to second chance opportunities. And if you're the Fever, like, does this change maybe your expectations, or still the same as far as, like, you know, championship? Because they got off to a slow start.
They definitely did. And I think you can look at it two different ways. This is a Commissioner's Cup. We talked about it earlier in the evening, right? Doesn't count in the standings, so to speak, but you take down a team like Minnesota, they only have 2 regular season losses. This gives you the validation, perhaps, not only for yourself internally, but for everyone else. Like, we can play these games, and especially when you don't play the way that you want from jump out the gate, but then you hold a team like the Minnesota Lynx to 7 points, Chris, in the second quarter, make Napheesa Collier uncomfortable, Kayla McBride 0 points from the perimeter. That's going to give you the confidence to keep pouring into the little things that you do. And that's going to make this Indiana Fever team, in my estimation, very dangerous down the stretch.
Yeah, definitely cannot underlook them. You know, you cannot, you know, just make sure you're focused on them, because if you overlook them, I should say, you see what happened on this night. And speaking about the Minnesota Lynx and their struggles, Napheesa Collier, I mean, 6 of 18, 12 points, didn't go to the free throw line. What were the Fever doing so well to make her so inefficient?
they were agitating Fee. You could see it visibly that she was communicating a lot with the officials. She didn't like the calls, to your point, about not getting to the free throw line. That is something that Napheesa Collier, again, visibly was showing that emotion. And that's not something that she always does. I will say, though, that whether it was because of the foul calls or lack thereof, or maybe something else, maybe something lingering. We know she's been out, Chris, with an injury herself, with a back injury, but she looked a little hesitant and reluctant at times. On the broadcast, you heard that if you're Minnesota, you have to go to Fee. You have to go to Napheesa Collier. She has to get touches. However, it just wasn't her night, and there weren't enough players that had that consistency to be able to knock down shots, to get the hustle plays and rebounds. That's what Indiana did better, to your point earlier, that Minnesota just couldn't do on a night where not one, but two stars, their top two scorers, just didn't have it.
Yeah, they didn't have it. Now, as bad as this game was for them, maybe it's a blessing in disguise, because the past two losers, right, of the Commissioner's Cup title game, they've gone on to win the WNBA Finals. So can they take anything from that, or do you feel like it's just, yo, we have to step up our game, we have to play much better because we don't have a chance of going to the WNBA Finals if we play like this against a team that is undermanned?
Well, let's talk about it from a sports perspective before I give you my vibes perspective, right? Yeah, this is going to sting. There are things that Minnesota did or didn't do in this game that they know they can execute on. And at the end of the day, athletes, when there's a championship on the line, but even more so, as we heard from Courtney Williams, when there's money on the line and you don't get it done, and you know that maybe you left something in the tank, that's going to fuel your fire. Now, as far as vibes, I told you coming in, I look at the trends about the situation and circumstances. I'll give you one more, Chris. I've been saying this a few times. The Minnesota Lynx have never won a WNBA title in an odd year. Okay? So, hey, here we go. This might be another chance to keep up with a trend specifically for Minnesota. They didn't get it done last year, but hey, that was 2024. Now we're in 2025, and maybe in addition to now dropping the Commissioner's Cup, using that trend, that could be something for them. I don't know, but ultimately, this is a Minnesota team. They're at the top of the table for a reason. They have superstars that can execute. This is a reminder, though, that you have to go in and do your job and do it well every single game. Nothing guaranteed, especially in today's WNBA.
As you predicted, anything is possible in the WNBA on any given night. Erica Ayala, always appreciate talking hoops with you.
Thanks, Chris.
And we've got more basketball coming up in the WNBA Sunday, 1 Eastern, right here on CBS, and also streaming on Paramount Plus, as the Storm, Skylar Diggins, and that crew going up against Brianna Stewart and the Liberty.